Welcome, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here today. My name is Olivia, and I am so excited to share my senior thesis with you all, titled The Promise of Play, Returning to the Kindergarten. Imagine a garden full of blooming flowers. What do these flowers need in order to grow and flourish? Could the flowers survive if just given water? Think back to middle school when you learned about photosynthesis. Hopefully, you will remember that flowers need water, sunlight, air, and nutrient-rich soil to grow. Today, we will be visiting a garden whose flowers are struggling to bloom because they are only being given water. A garden whose flowers are made by the Creator, yet often overlooked. Today, we will be visiting the kindergarten. Childhood has long been kept sacred as a time for children to grow through play and exploration. German educational philosopher Friedrich Froebel sought to preserve the beauty and wonder of childhood. In 1837, Froebel opened the first ever kindergarten, which was a German word translating to child's garden. He understood the importance of play for child development, stating, "Play is the highest expression of human development in childhood, for it alone is the free expression of what is in a child's soul." Froebel saw the whole of a child and believed that engaging all of their senses would allow for the most productive and joyful learning to take place. He created the kindergarten to be a place where young children could come and learn with their hands. Froebel developed educational toys for his kindergarten, of which he called the gifts. Froebel's set of gifts included blocks of various geometric shapes and sizes, including cylinders and cubes, which inspired some of the hands-on manipulatives seen in classrooms today. These gifts allowed his students to begin to conceptualize shape and size, setting their foundations for math. Froebel's students learned at a developmentally appropriate pace that honored the unique strengths and weaknesses of each child. Kindergarten in America was originally established on Froebel's ideas and principles. Yet, as society has progressed and the public school system has become more established, it also became more standardized. The focus was originally on play, with one academic purpose: readiness for first grade. But kindergarten has become even more rigorous over the past couple of decades. In his book, Free to Learn, psychology and neuroscience professor Peter Gray writes about the importance of play for child development. He reveals what the public schools are doing today. Children start school at even younger ages. The school year has grown longer, as has the school day, and opportunities for free play within the school day have largely been eliminated. What was originally meant to be a garden for young children to blossom through the means of play has become a heavily academic space where time for play is not given priority. Where children once practiced their fine motor skills while enjoying building with their blocks, they are now expected to sit down at their desks writing with pencils on worksheets. The fact is that kindergarten today is not what it used to be. As we will explore in this thesis, while society's expectations for children have risen, the standards placed on the young students has increased. But how can we preserve the kindergarten to truly be a garden where young children can blossom while protecting the children's right to play? There is no grand solution to the current state of kindergarten within the public school system. I will not attempt to completely reform the American school system, nor do I believe that it is a plausible task. Rather, in this thesis, I will seek to bring awareness to the current state of our kindergarten. I will encourage parents to consider their child's needs and current school situation and to make changes if necessary and possible. I will also urge teachers to make small changes for their students and to bring as much free play back into their classrooms as they can. I am asking my audience to recognize the current state of our school system and join me in advocating for our children. Central to my thesis is the key term free play. That is, play in which the players themselves decide what and how to play and are free to modify the goals and rules as they go along. Froebel also referred to as educating the whole child. that is educating through valuing each unique aspect of a child while considering their cognitive, social, emotional, and physical needs. Froebel valued each of his students and viewed them as flowers in his child's garden. For these flowers to bloom, they must be cultivated. According to Merriam-Webster, to cultivate is to foster the growth of, to improve by labor, care, or study. The goal of this thesis is to bring kindergarten back to its original purpose and to redefine education as the outlet for showing honor and love to God's little image bearers. Ultimately, the role of kindergarten is to cultivate a love for learning within a child by valuing their intrinsic worth and uniqueness, and by allowing the child to explore their natural curiosities through hands-on learning and play. In order for children to flourish and love learning, free play must be brought back to the kindergarten classroom. To begin, play is essential for developing the whole child and therefore must be the center of kindergarten. Educators must follow Froebel's example by allowing their kindergarten students to play, which will allow for physical, cognitive, and social emotional growth. In his book, The Education of Men, Froebel stated, "A child that plays throughoutly with self-active determination, perseveringly until physical fatigue forbids, will surely be a throughout determined man, capable of self-sacrifice for the promotion of the welfare of himself and others." Is not the most beautiful expression of child life at this time a playing child, a child wholly absorbed in his play? In other words, if the child has the freedom to play, they will learn determination and be capable of working with other children. Play allows the child to grow physically, cognitively, and social-emotionally because the child can practice real-life scenarios. Peter Gray explains, "The drive to play freely is a basic biological drive. Lack of free play may not kill the physical body, as would lack of food, air, or water, but it kills the spirit and stunts mental growth. Free play is the means by which children learn to make friends, overcome their fears, solve their own problems, and generally take control of their own lives." Free play allows the child to develop their creativity and relational skills, which are key to being successful in life. To illustrate, I had the opportunity to join a group of kindergarteners at Seaside Charter School for their indoor playtime. Seaside differs from traditional public school because they take a whole child approach. As explained on their website, Seaside Charter Schools embraces the whole child, head, heart, and hands. They're an education that integrates each child's creative, intellectual, emotional, physical, and social domains. During the kindergarten indoor play, the children excitedly raced to shelves filled with wooden baskets of different toys and hands-on manipulatives, including blocks, dolls, pom-poms, animals, and more. One precious girl brought over a bin of Magna-Tiles and asked me to play with her. Another little boy wandered over and asked us if he could join. The children directed their own play because they chose the Magna-Tiles and what to build, while also learning how to share and work together. This is an example of how free play is not only enjoyable for a child, but also productive for evolving fine motor skills as well as their communication and relational skills. This free play must be prioritized in the classroom because it reaches beyond the capabilities of a purely academic lesson. The Alliance for Childhood explains, "Play is a major mode for learning in early childhood. With sensible boundaries and support from teachers, it leads to enormous growth in all aspects of a child's development: cognitive, social, emotional, imaginative, and physical. Furthermore, it is the primary tool through which children explore their interests, express their joys, and process their fears, disappointments, and sorrows." There is a certain depth and richness in play that cannot be found through a purely rote or didactic teacher-led lesson. For example, a teacher could give a PowerPoint about plants and instruct the students to write a summary about what they learned. Or the teacher could give each child a plant to care for and dissect. The touch of the smooth petals and the feeling of dirt on their little fingers will immerse the child's senses, thus having a longer lasting impression on the child. Overall, playful hands-on learning embraces the whole child, allowing the child to better retain their learning. This hands-on learning and free play must be the center of kindergarten because it will develop the whole child. Furthermore, free play honors a child's uniqueness through providing the opportunity for the child to direct their own learning and follow their God-given curiosity. This will help the child learn to love learning and therefore increase their desire to learn as they progress through their education. Free play is a gift from God that will suit the child's developmental needs ages 4 to 6. This is because through free play, the child can follow their passions and innate curiosity, thus finding joy in their learning. Adapting the curriculum to the needs of each child will value their uniqueness, which is a gift from God. Psalm 139, verses 13 through 15 says, "For you formed my inward parts, you wove me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the depths of the earth." Each child is so wonderfully and so uniquely made. A child is a person made in the image of God, with their own strengths and weaknesses, as well as curiosities and passions. A teacher can honor God in her classroom by valuing each intricately made part of the child, which is his beautiful creation. A teacher who values the whole child will recognize the value in self-directed learning. For example, if a child is obsessed with dinosaurs, the teacher may allow the child to act out as a T-Rex. The teacher may provide additional instruction, such as a book about their favorite dinosaur or videos. However, since the child had the choice to study dinosaurs, they will find joy in that learning process and thus cultivate that love for learning. This love for learning is the bedrock for the rest of their education. The child will gain an intrinsic motivation to learn rather than purely extrinsic. People of all ages are constantly learning, whether at a school, at a job, or as they seek to take care of their families. If a child starts with a strong foundation of loving to learn, they will continue to do so in life. God has big things for little hearts that are his. Ephesians 2:10 states, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand so that we would walk in them." Kindergarten must be kept sacred as the space to cultivate a child's love for learning, which will allow the child to flourish and one day step into God's calling for their life. When a child is passionate about what they are learning, they will fall in love with the act of learning. This is the purpose of kindergarten. Unfortunately, the modern kindergarten classroom has increased in rigor, while seeing a decline in opportunities for a child to be exposed to particular interest areas. There was a study done by the American Educational Research Association titled, "Is Kindergarten the New First Grade?" The study compares kindergarten in 1998 versus 2010, demonstrating the loss of play and increase in standardization. As shown on the screen, the study presents changes in the use of child-selected activities, more didactic instructional activities, and opportunities for free play and physical movement. One table in the study presents changes in exposure to particular interest areas. The study shows that in 1998, 49% of kindergarten teachers reported to having a water or sand table, whereas in 2010, only 24% of kindergarten teachers had one, showing a 25% decrease. There were also decreases in percentages of teachers who had a puzzle or block area, a science or nature area, a dramatic play area, and an art area. Meanwhile, standardized testing and use of worksheets have increased. The decrease in interest areas within the kindergarten classroom lessen a child's ability to explore their God-given curiosity through playful learning. Moreover, throughout the decline in play, kindergarten has lost the whole child focus. I had the opportunity to interview and absorb my former kindergarten teacher, Wendy Brogdon, at PV Rawlings Elementary School. Mrs. Brogdon has been teaching kindergarten for 34 years and has witnessed drastic changes in the public school system since she first started teaching. Mrs. Brogdon explained that when she first started teaching 34 years ago, the school day included an hour nap and ended at 1:30. Her students learned one letter per week, focusing on coloring and cutting to develop fine motor skills. Reading and writing stories were saved for first grade, but this is no longer the case. Mrs. Brogdon stated, "Basically, I'm teaching first grade and some second grade at this point. Everything has bumped up that much." Essentially, what is happening is that the public school system is attempting to normalize a rigorous kindergarten for the purpose of funding in competition with other schools, all without parents truly understanding what is best for their child. Mrs. Brogdon explained that better numbers and gains from students provide more funding for their school. Teachers are therefore forced to spend their class time focusing on preparation for standardized testing to be compared to the other schools. Mrs. Brogdon explained that although God's design for a child has not changed, the children are forced to develop at a much faster rate. Mrs. Brogdon explains that many of her students are able to keep up with the rigor, but it is not appropriate nor is it necessary for them. She stated, "There's plenty of time, but society makes it so competitive that unfortunately we have to keep up. So unfortunately, so do they." Children are hurried into maturing at a faster rate than ever before. It is not the children's fault, but rather it is a result of the fallen society that we live in. Ultimately, the issue of loss of play in the kindergarten classroom needs more attention. We must speak up and bring play back for the sake of our society's future. There's a lack of research regarding the long-term results of the current schooling model because the issue is not as well known and the changes have been so recent. The Alliance for Childhood report explained, "We do not know the long-term consequences of the loss of play in early childhood, but this has become a concern for pediatricians and psychologists. In the absence of research on this critical question, we are blindly pursuing educational policies that could well damage the intellectual, social, and physical development of an entire generation." We must stop the push for increased learning standards without even knowing the results that this pressure will have on students. When children do not have the opportunity to grow and learn at a developmentally appropriate pace, they may struggle later in life because they did not have a strong foundation. Perhaps kindergarten is not the place to learn everything, but rather to learn and learn to love learning. The issue of loss of play and increased rigor in kindergarten is of the utmost importance because it will impact our society's future. America needs the next generation to contribute to society in meaningful ways, and school is where it starts. A child's experience in kindergarten could affect the outlook on the rest of their schooling, which will impact their life. Edward Miller stated, "No human being can achieve his full potential if his creativity is stunted in childhood. And no nation can thrive in the 21st century without citizens who can form their own independent thoughts and act on them." Cultivating a love for learning while a child is young will help establish a good foundation for higher learning. Also, the Christian is called by God to educate their children well. Proverbs 22:6 states, "Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it." What is cultivated in kindergarten stays with a person as they go through childhood and mature into adulthood. That person is a member of society who will affect those around them. We therefore must seek to cultivate the whole child in kindergarten. Now, many teachers and parents are in favor of this hands-on learning and play for students, but it is simply not the reality of what is going on in the classroom. This is because our state government believes that pushing heavier academics on young students will prepare them for higher schooling. The Florida Department of Education holds high standards for kindergarten, stating, "The best standards for English language arts are literacy standards for Florida students that will shape their education and make Florida the most literate state in the nation. The best standards will pave the way for Florida students to receive a world-class education and prepare them for a successful future. The best standards are designed to ensure that all students reach their greatest potential." It is true that standardization allows for fair, equal measurement of student academic progress. An increase in reading standards may lead to Florida becoming the most literate state in the nation. Yet standardized testing cannot measure all aspects of a student's progress, including their physical and social-emotional growth. Furthermore, at what cost is it necessary to require 5-year-olds to uphold such standards before even developing their cognitive skills? An example of an ELA standards teachers must uphold in the state of Florida is standard LAFS.K.W.2.5, which states, "With guidance and support from adults, respond to questions and suggestions from peers and add details to strengthen writing as needed." The following standard states, With guidance and support from adults, explore a variety of digital tools to produce and publish writing, including in collaboration with peers. All this at age 5? Yes. Not only must teachers devote their time to teaching these standards, but kindergarteners in the state of Florida sit down for standardized testing 3 times a year to ensure that these standards are met. The Florida Department of Education states, the results of this screening provide valuable information about a child's readiness for school, help teachers plan instruction, and meet each child's needs and offer useful information to parents. The claim that standardized testing can help a teacher meet a child's academic needs is true and should not be overlooked. However, an even more important consideration is the harm testing causes for a child's mental health, and that standardized testing cannot measure the development of the whole child. Standardized testing does not value the individual needs and uniqueness of each child, but rather puts them in a box. Increased standardization within a classroom confines a child's learning and takes priority away from play. Another reason for the decline of play is that in today's culture, parents feel pressure to make sure their child is not falling behind. Parents feel the need to put their child in extracurricular activities and tutoring after school. Parents who wish to consider an alternative schooling method for their child may fear that their child will fall behind their peers in the rigorous public school system. Parents will push their child to success as the world defines it, yet much is sacrificed in the process. The Christian, however, realizes that successful parenting is actually obedience to God's calling to educate with the purpose of discipling their child. The Christian parent must see to it that they, as well as their child, are not taken captive through philosophy and empty deception, according to the tradition of men, as Colossians 2:8 tells us. While society uses education to idolize success and achievement, the Christian will see a higher plane. Education as the means to demonstrate the love of Christ to his little ones, and as a tool for cultivating wisdom and discernment, starting in kindergarten. But also, while focusing on developing the whole child may mean taking academics slower, the child will not necessarily be behind in the upcoming grades. If anything, the child will do better in higher grades because they developed a strong foundation and a love for learning. A child should not be identified by their progress in school, but rather by their inherent value defined by God. At the same time, the child who is given the opportunity to develop at the pace that God designed them to will flourish and become academically successful as they progress into the higher grades. We have now explored a brief history of the kindergarten and the importance of play for child development. We learned that play allows for all aspects of a child's development: physical, cognitive, social, and emotional. Then, we moved on to recognize that there is a significant increase in rigor and standardization in today's school, while time spent on free play is decreasing. Finally, we concluded that this loss of play is stunting the growth of the whole child, and that play must be brought back to the kindergarten. This will show honor and love to the children who are fearfully and wonderfully made by God. As a flower needs water, sunlight, air, and soil, a child needs free play in order to bloom. The child cannot rely fully on their academic development, but rather must have the opportunity to develop their whole self. Play will allow the child to flourish and will cultivate a love for learning within the child. Kindergarten is not the place to learn everything, but rather where children learn how to learn and gain a love for learning. The cultivation of this love for learning will provide a strong foundation for the rest of their schooling and their life. The question that remains is this: are we too far gone? Unfortunately, society's idolization of success as the world defines it has filtered down to the kindergarten classroom, but we must not give up on the children. Kindergarten teachers must find ways to incorporate hands-on learning and play into their classroom as much as possible. Parents, I encourage you to become more involved in your child's education and to lean on God's wisdom to disciple your child. Take the time to consider your child's specific learning and developmental needs and make changes to their education plans if necessary and possible. To all my audience, I encourage you to reach out to the children you know and play with them. This could be your little siblings, your cousins, neighbors, or kids from your church. Not only will this minister to the child, but there's also something about engaging in the act of play with a child that will bring you joy as well. May all of us seek to show honor and love to the next generation by advocating to bring back play. Thank you. Any questions?